Hello, first grade. Welcome to part one of your reading lesson today. I am so excited to share with you what we're going to be doing today in reading with Miss Spears and myself. Today, in our reading lesson, you are going to be writing your own story about a new problem that Owl has with wind. Miss Spears will go over all the directions for your story. In the directions, it asks you to write an original narrative. Those are some big words. Let's think about what those words mean. Original. Well, the word original means new, and the word narrative means story. So, you will be writing a brand new story about Owl. I have included all the resources you might need to be successful when writing your own story. And I will go over those with you in the video on slide 5. First, though, you're going to watch the video with Miss Spears to learn about what you're going to be doing. It is very important that you follow the directions from Miss Spears and use your story map to plan your writing before you begin writing your story. It will make it easier for you to write your story if you have already planned it out. After you watch the lesson with Miss Spears, make sure you go through all the slides, especially slides 5 and 6, where I'm going to give you an example of my own original story about Owl. And I will read my story in the video on slide 5 as well. Today, you will only be filling out your story map, and then you will record a Flipgrid reading your story to your teacher. And then tomorrow, you'll be turning in your writing. All right, friends, myself and your teacher cannot wait to hear your stories. So it's time to get to work.
Hello, first grade friends, and welcome back to Wit and Wisdom in Sync. My name is Tanisha Spears, and I'm excited to jump into our lesson for today. But before we do, let's make sure you have your materials ready. For this lesson, you will need handout 18B, which is Focusing Question Task 3 Story Map. You'll need your Wit and Wisdom in Sync journal and a pencil. We will also be using Assessment 18A, but I'll show that to you on the screen. Pause the video if you need to gather your materials. In previous work, you identified the story elements and created a story map for the short story, The Guest, from the text, Owl at Home. And you did that in order to determine what was happening in the text. Today, you will continue to think about what is happening, as well as think about how to write responses to a problem and a resolution in a story. Now, in our work today, you will not only think about the main character in Owl at Home, but you'll be thinking beyond the text about the new adventures Owl might have. And before we begin thinking about those adventures, let's review the question that is focusing our work with this text. And that question is, how do characters respond to the powerful force of the wind? You're going to have an opportunity to plan your own story about how a familiar character, the owl, might respond to the powerful force of the wind. And the craft question that will support you in that work for today is, how do I write responses to a problem and a resolution in a story? And for your focusing question task, you'll be writing about a new problem Owl might have with the wind and how that problem gets resolved. All right, friends, now you are going to use the information and skills you've learned to create a story that shows how Owl responds to a new problem with the wind. We're going to look over this assessment together. We'll go through the steps on how to do the task and make a plan for your story. So after this video, you will know what to write, and your classroom teacher will tell you how to show your work and how to turn it into them. All right, you are going to create a story about how Owl responds to a new problem with the wind. You're going to explain how Owl responds to the problem and include a resolution. I want you to listen carefully as I read the prompt so you can decide which problem your story will be about. Listen carefully. Write an original narrative about the character Owl from Owl at Home, the guest. Imagine Owl has a new problem with the wind. Write a story describing how Owl responds. Select one of the problems listed below for your story. The wind is too hot. The wind is blowing rain in the house. The wind is blowing Owl's papers all over the house. Now think, what is part of the prompt asking you to do? Think. Share with your learning partner. I'm sure you said it. You need to choose one of the 3 problems to use in the story that you will be writing about Owl. I'll read the problems one more time. The wind is too hot. The wind is blowing rain in the house. The wind is blowing Owl's papers all over the house. Here is your checklist for success. Be sure to include all of the following in your story. A story map to plan your story. Words that describe how Owl feels and what he does in response to the wind. And words to show the order of events. Okay, now what I'd like you to do is take out the story map on handout 18B. And remember, if you don't have it, that's okay. You can create a story map in your journals instead. Do you have what you need? All right. Remember, you have used story maps in many ways before, and you're going to use a story map today to plan a story that you are going to write yourselves. You will see that the characters and settings have already been completed for you. You'll see the character is the owl and the setting is Owl's house. Okay, you will see that the problem box is empty, and that's because you will need to fill in the problem that you have selected for your story. Now, what I've done is I've included the problems that you can choose from on the slide. So all you need to do is copy the one that you want to select onto your story map. Are you ready? Pause the video now to copy the problem that you've selected into the problem box. All right, let's take a look at page 2. You'll see the icons for the responses to the problem and the resolution. And what you are going to do is you are going to pause the video to write your ideas for how Owl might respond to the problem and how the problem gets resolved in the boxes that match. You can also draw pictures in the boxes to show how Owl feels when the problem occurs and when the problem gets resolved. Are you ready? Pause the video now to complete the responses to the problem and the resolution. Did you complete your story maps? I bet you did. I want to remind you that in Module 1, you learned about words that writers use to put the events of a story in order. Let's review those words now. You'll see them on your screen. Beginning, middle, end, first, next, last, then, finally. These words, and I want to point out first, next, and last specifically because they show the order in which things happen, and you can use this chart when you're writing your narratives. You can also rewind this video and come back to this chart if you need words to help the reader understand the order of events in your story. All right, now you will use the story maps you created to orally rehearse your stories. Remember, you have lots of resources that you can use when you are rehearsing your story, like the story map and the time order words anchor chart. Now that you know what you're going to write about, you'll be practicing saying your story out loud today. And remember, your classroom teacher will tell you where to complete your work when you're ready to write. Pause the video now to rehearse your story. All right, awesome first graders. Did you rehearse your story? I am sure you did, and I wish I could have heard them. Nice job thinking about how to write responses to a problem and a resolution. Next time, we will be thinking about important messages. So until then, be kind and do something great because you are capable of greatness.